I would like to run through some housekeeping arrangements. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel. The stream will be available to watch after the meeting has ended. By attending the meeting, you are giving your consent to being filmed, and a notice with further information has been provided in the public gallery. As Mayor, I have agreed that members should remain seated while speaking at this meeting to ensure good sound quality. Under the openness of local government bodies regulations, people may film, record, tweet or blog this meeting, and this is outside the Council's control. I would also like to remind councillors and the other people attending the meeting that the fire exits are to the rear and the side of the room. There are no fire alarm tests planned for this evening, and could I also ask that everyone turn off their mobile phones or switches them on to silent so the meeting isn't disturbed. I would also like to remind councillors that you are unable to vote on any item if you leave the room during the consideration of the item. So the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I have had apologies from the following honorary older women and older men. Honorary Alderman Bush, Honorary Alderman Day, Honorary Alderman Stotts, Honorary Alderman Tormey and Honorary Alderwoman Vincent. I've also had apologies from the following councillors: Councillor Brooks, Councillor Knight, Councillor Monk, Councillor Needham, Councillor Seaton and Councillor Jadeja and Nat Taylor, Councillor Nat Taylor. Are there any other apologies that I haven't read out, please? Okay, smashing. So I'd now like to say a few words just before we start tonight. About community, I'm going to read a poem. We know that community is an important and essential aspect of our role as councillors and in life that fosters cooperation, mutual support and interdependence. Therefore, poems about community capture the essence of what it means to be part of a group and how individuals can work together to create something greater than themselves. Poems for community serve as evidence of the importance of building and maintaining strong, healthy communities in our daily lives. So the poem I'm going to read is called "For Unity is the Key." In unity we find our strength. Together we can go to great length. Bound by a common goal, we can overcome any toll. For when we stand together, we are stronger than ever. No challenge is too great, as we stand hand in hand, mate. Our differences become our strength, as we come together at great length. For when we embrace diversity, we create a bond of unity. With unity we can build a world that's just and filled with love, peace and harmony for all humanity. Let us embrace each other and lift one another, for in unity we find our might, and together we can reach new heights. So let us join our hands and take a stand, for unity is the key to a world that's free. I will now move on to item 2, disclosures of pecuniary interests and other registrable and non-registrable interests. For information, disclosable pecuniary interests and registrable interests relate to entries that are included or should be included on a councillor's register of interests. Non-registrable interests relate to any other matter. So I will now call on the Chief Executive to report any on disclosures of interest in the business to be considered at this meeting, which have already been made by councillors in advance of the meeting. I would also like to draw your attention to the requirements set out on the agenda with regards to voting and interests relating to the setting of the budget and the council tax. That's items 6.1 and 6.2 on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to draw your attention to section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, which requires that a councillor who owes arrears of council tax which have been outstanding for more than 2 months must declare this at any council meeting which considers the setting of a budget and the council tax, that they should not vote on those matters. Failing to comply with those requirements, if they apply, is an offence. If this applies to any councillors at this meeting, they are therefore advised to make the required declaration and to leave the meeting during consideration of item 6.1. It is also a requirement of the Council's Code of Conduct for members that the existence and nature of all interests must be disclosed. Therefore, in the case of items on 6.1 and 6.2 on the agenda, it is suggested that members of precepting authorities declare such interests. This would relate to members of Leicestershire County Council, the Combined Fire Authority, Police and Parish and Town Councils. I'll now read out the declarations I've had so far before inviting some from the floor. Councillor Liz Blackshaw, items 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Mount Sorrel Parish and a member of the Police and Crime Panel. Councillor Matthew Brooks, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Thurmaston Parish Council. Councillor Mark Charles, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Thurkeston and Cropston Parish Council. Councillor Andy Dent, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Thurmaston Parish Council. Councillor Hilary Fryer, agenda item 6.1 and 6.2, Leicestershire County Council for Corn and Barrow. Councillor Gina Jackson, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Thurmaston Parish Council. Councillor Mark Lowe, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Thurmaston Parish Council. Councillor Mia, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Leicestershire County Council and 10.8. Councillor David Northage, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Shepshed Town Council. Councillor Robin Popley, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Shepshed Town Council. Councillor Miriam Roberts, 6.1 and 6.2, as a Leicestershire County Council pension holder. Councillor Brenda Seaton, I believe, is absent, but 6.1 and 6.2, Leicestershire County Council. Councillor Deborah Taylor, 6.1 and 6.2, Leicestershire County Council. I have a few others just to read first before I open it to the floor. Councillor Roberts, 6.1, Shepshed Town Council. Councillor Claire Forrest, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Barrow and Saw Parish. Councillor Julie Palmer, 6.1 and 6.2, as a member of Birstall Parish. Councillor Sandy Forrest, 6.1, 6.2, member of Barrow Parish. That's duplicates. I have one here that doesn't have a name on it, so if you've submitted a pink form but haven't heard your name called out, then you may want to do so from the floor. So if I can open it from the floor from any other disclosures of interest, please.
Councillor Nicolai.
Okay, 6.1 and 6.2, I'm assuming, yep. Okay. Thank you. Any more from the floor? Councillor Taylor. We'll cover it at 6.2 as well. Thank you.
Councillor Lenny. Councillor Roberts. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you.
So moving on to item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 20th of January 2025 be confirmed and signed as a correct record.
I second the minutes, Madam Mayor.
Does anyone wish to raise anything on the accuracy of the meetings, and if so, please state the minute number. Since no issues have been raised, I take this to signify that the minutes are accepted as a correct record. Thank you, and I will now sign the official minutes I have here with me and pass to the Head of Democracy for archiving. So the next item is item 4, announcements. Mayor's announcements. I have the following announcements to make. So I would like to remind members that my charity dinner in aid of the LWA Living Without Abuse and Dogs Trust Loughborough will be held at Quorn Grange Country Hotel on Friday the 21st of March. The hotel has given us more places, so please sign up fast via the link provided in the email sent to all councillors recently. Please message me if you need the link again. I would also like to make members aware that today marks the 3-year anniversary of the Ukrainian invasion. The Deputy Mayor attended a vigil earlier today to mark this anniversary. Item 4.2, Leader's Announcements. I call on the Leader to make his announcements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity to update Council on the Government's English Devolution White Paper. Since its publication, I've been in regular discussions with leaders of other district councils in Leicestershire and Rutland County Council. We all share a commitment to working together because one thing is clear: doing nothing is simply not an option. The government has said all two-tier areas must bring forward proposals for reorganisation to unlock the benefits brought by devolution. We recently heard from the government that Leicestershire will not be in the first wave for devolution. This means county council elections will go ahead in May, and importantly, gives us more time to develop proposals that work for our communities. However, I must say I was disappointed that the county council made a request to government to postpone their elections without discussing it with any of the district councils, a proposal that didn't succeed in getting the county council onto the priority list. As you will be aware, the County Council have revisited its long-standing ambition to create a single unitary for Leicestershire. The district councils and Rutland are committed to developing a proposal that is based on evidence and engagement with local people. Our guiding principles are clear. We must balance scale with local connections. Any new model should reflect how people actually live their lives, and crucially, we must keep the local in local government. From the work we have done so far, a clear case is emerging for a 3-unitary model. One for the north of Leicestershire and Rutland, one for the south, and for Leicester City to continue as a unitary authority. This model would keep councils close to their communities, deliver significant savings, simplify structures for residents, strengthen partnerships, and improve service delivery. Compare this to the County Council's proposal, a single unitary authority covering nearly 800,000 people. In my view, this would be too big, too remote, and democratically inaccessible. It also doesn't align with other public services like police, fire, and health, nor would it support devolution, creating an unbalanced framework for any new mayor to work with. The district councils and Rutland have shown an inspiring willingness to collaborate, to put residents first. Is it easy? No, but there is strength in unity, and we are determined to get this right. So what happens now? We will continue developing our interim plan, engaging with communities and stakeholders. Let's be clear, nothing has been finalised, and whatever happens, the government will consult before they make the final decision. A report providing a further update will be taken to Cabinet on the 12th of March. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the staff of Charnwood for their continued dedication. I know this uncertainty isn't easy, but we must continue to deliver the services our residents need, and let me assure you, any changes will take time, and most staff will continue working in local government, delivering the essential services our communities rely on. Finally, I will keep members fully updated as the situation progresses. Thank you.
Thank you. So item 4.3, Chief Executive's announcements. I call on the Chief Executive to make his announcements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no announcements to make.
The next item is item 5, petitions. Are there any petitions to be presented? Great. So now moving on to item 6.1, General Fund and HRA Revenue Budgets and Council Tax 2025-26, page 19 of the main agenda pack and page 3 of the supplement. Can I draw everyone's attention to the supplementary agenda pack which has been placed on your tables? I also wish to highlight a typographical error on page 37 of the main agenda pack. The last column, where it is headed Parish Special Requirements at Band B, should state Band D. May I also remind councillors that it's a legal requirement that all votes taken on this item, including votes on amendments, must be recorded votes. There is also another slight difference in the procedure for this item, in that, in addition to the normal rules for the length of speeches, one member of the Conservative group, one member of the Labour group, and one member of the Green group have the right to speak for 5 minutes rather than 3 minutes in debating the budget. It would be helpful if the councillors exercising this right and councillors proposing amendments could indicate that they are doing so at the beginning of their speech. So I now call on Councillor Ashcroft to propose the item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to introduce the proposed 2025-26 budgets for the General Fund and the HRA revenue accounts. I believe these budgets strike an appropriate balance between financial prudence and sustainability, provision of excellent services, and fairness to our residents. It can be seen that the forecast working balance in the General Fund at March 2026 is 6.36 million, which is more than twice the recommended minimum of 3 million, and is also higher than the projected working balance at the end of 24-25, therefore reflecting our strategy of moving towards financial sustainability when setting these budgets. This has been achieved while maintaining or improving services and providing for additional communal grant funding for agencies aiding residents struggling with the cost of living. It can also be seen in the appendices that the Council continues to face serious service pressures, but is also continuing to increase income and deliver efficiency savings. Hence, we are able to deliver this balanced budget whilst remaining in the lower quartile of council tax in the country. So, Madam Mayor, to ensure that the necessary finance is available to carry out services in 2025-26 and set the council tax, I move, for the reasons set out, that recommendations 1 to 12 are set out on page 19 of the agenda pack, and recommendations 1 to 17 are set out in the supplement pack.
I second this, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right.
Okay. So if any councillors would like to speak, please indicate using your console. Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose an amendment, if I may, and speak on that amendment.
Okay.
Need a second?
Sorry. Oh, we need a seconder, first of all. Just turning my page.
Can we have a second?
I second that, Madam Mayor, and I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to move an amendment to remove the £5 extra charge on waste bins, on brown bins. I believe an increase in brown bin charges is regressive given the high cost of living of our residents, and particularly those in the lowest income brackets. And the Labour 2023 to 27 manifesto specifically states that you will, and I quote, freeze brown bin waste collection charges. I ask you, therefore, why you've put this increase forward. We will gain around £170,000 by putting this forward, but that's at the expense of our residents, and it represents only 0.81%, less than 1% of the general fund budget. When will our residents get some respite from the council's ever-increasing charges, or life's generally increasing charges? We've increased parking, we're increasing council tax, the Labour government's increased national insurance contributions for businesses, and so on and so on. We should be cutting our cloth, not constantly increasing costs on our hard-working residents. We should be looking to increase our commercial income, and also looking to increase our return on our financial investments, and to some extent selling some of the assets that we have that are not useful to us in the long term. I'd also like to, as a second part of the amendment, suggest that we reduce expenditure by 268,000, which is the component of the proposed budget that leaks into, if you like, the reserves. So with a general fund expenditure of 20.7 million, this element is only 1.29% of the budget. And again, I must quote the Labour 23-27 manifesto, which explains that they will identify and implement a cost reduction strategy on departmental budgets so that services are provided as cost effectively as possible. So again, Labour appear to want to go against their own manifesto. So on the Labour benches, I ask you, if you go ahead with the vote, and I presume that you might do, then you'll be effectively increasing long-term costs for your residents, but doing so, do so knowing that you're voting against your own manifesto. So can those who voted Labour trust you after this to deliver on your promises? I would also suggest there's a need to save money long-term, that we're better off as a council saving money rather than just increasing costs. And I suggest this because I think local government reorganisation may actually cost us more than the 2.3 million estimated. If it does, then we'll be in a much better prudential position financially. In any case, we shouldn't let costs continually go up by more than inflation. So these two elements removed from the budget are 438,000 or 2.11% of the general fund budget. This is a modest saving, a modest supplementary saving that I believe could easily be achieved with a concerted effort to procure more wisely, and consequently I urge you to pass our amendment. It's the most prudent approach to take. Thank you.
So I'm just going to come in there. I'm now proposing a 10-minute adjournment, and before that starts, I'd like to invite the Section 151 Officer Simon Jackson to comment, please, on the amendment.
The financial implications of the amendment are. So within the budget, as Councillor Baines has said, approximately 170,000. Actually, we've got £165,000 worth of additional income baked into the budget numbers. So to get down to a nil use of reserves, that would imply 165,000 plus the 268,000 in the budget. So that would imply finding additional savings of 433,000. So just to be clear on what the financial implications that are. Thank you.
Okay, so we now have a 10-minute adjournment, please.
Okay, can you time?
We have to go out.
Yeah, just stay. Just stay. We're just going to have a quick test, just to make sure they're comfortable.
We'll make a start when that's done. Thank you. So after that slight adjournment, we can now go to the debating on it. So could you press your buzzers, please, if you're ready to debate. So the first person on the queue is Councillor Deborah Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When you want to help people, you tell them the truth. This is Conservative values and my own morals and values. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. That is what we heard from the Labour government when they wanted your vote at the general election. This is what the Charnwood Labour group has also done. Promised you the world, said what you wanted to hear, and when they wanted your vote at election time, but they never intended to deliver. The Labour group were hoping the £5 increase to the yearly cost of a garden bin would just go through undetected. But in opposition, we are much stronger than Labour ever was. We read our papers, we scrutinise this Labour Green coalition and make sure we call them out when they break their promises. Their manifesto promised to freeze the brown bin garden waste collection, now shown to be an untrue promise. Not only is this taking Charnwood residents of mugs, it will also prevent some residents affording a garden bin. And residents will put their garden waste in their black bins. I will be interested in the Greens vote this evening. They have been in coalition with the Labour administration, therefore supporting their manifesto. Are they standing by Labour tonight on this issue? What do they stand for, more or less recycling? What morals and values do they stand for? Do they agree that it's okay to put something in a manifesto and then go back on that? The Labour manifesto also said, our promise to you. Costs are increasing everywhere, so we will cap any rise in council tax to 3% for Charnwood. If we are in control of Charnwood after the elections and we can find a way not to increase it, then we won't. We will identify and implement a cost reduction strategy on departmental budgets so that services are cost effectively as possible. The proposed increase in the budget is 3.28% at Band B, and use of reserves in the budget. Shows again another two broken manifesto promises. I think that's 3 broken promises tonight alone.
Time's up, please. Thank you. The next councillor to speak is Councillor Ashcroft. Can I just remind you, Councillor Ashcroft, that you have 5 minutes to sum up at the end as well, at the end of the amendment, yeah?
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I recommend that we don't support these amendments. First of all, in terms of charges, I think we've stated that our policy has been to move towards sustainable inflation-linked increases in charges. This stops the position where you have stagnation in charges which need a large adjustment, which is much less acceptable. On the second point, use of the 268k is acceptable because we're in a position where we're much financially stronger. So we've got 6 million in this budget in working balance, which is more than twice the minimum required. And it's an increase from 24-25, which was 4 million. So there's no need to make savings for savings' sake. And then lastly, in reducing costs, you can see we have a programme for this. It's very effective, making large costs, but this is also in the face of service pressures, which we also have to accommodate. So it's not so easy just make additional savings. We're already doing so, but we also want to make sure we do so without, we also maintain our services and we don't cut back on any of our services.
Thank you. Next councillor, Councillor Corey Lousley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it goes without saying motion. You don't have to have a brown bin. They are optional. They're not something that everybody has, and they're certainly not an absolute necessity. Don't get me wrong, they're very useful. My dad loves his brown bin dearly, but I'm sure that he would be very happy to stomach a small increase in the cost of that bin in the interest of maintaining our public services at a high standard, which have seen a decade of gratuitous cuts. So, as I say, I think this is an unnecessary amendment, and I'll be supporting the original motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Haynes, please. Councillor Andy Haynes.
Sorry, the Conservatives seem to be trying to have the cake and eat it on this one. The first thing, this complaining about a £5 extra increase on the brown bins. Well, that's going to be much difference to anybody's problem. And they're saying that's actually going to be a increase on the poorer people who can't afford brown bins. Then they're saying they want to make vague, unspecified savings. Well, how do you make savings? You cut services, or you make people redundant. Who's that going to help? It's certainly not going to help the poorer people of the authority. It's going to help the better off people. Of course, that is what we would expect from a Conservative.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Any other councillors wish? Okay, we've now got Councillor Anne Gray, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A bit surprised at this amendment, especially as maybe my memory deceives me, but I could have sworn that last year Councillor Baines did stand up and say we'd be crazy not to review charges. We haven't put any charges up lightly. I'm surprised also that this has been through scrutiny. No one's mentioned this, although a number of very sensible comments were made when the budget was scrutinised. Also, £5 for a brown bin, not been put up for 2 years. We didn't put it up last year. It's quite a small amount when you compare it with some of the large leaps that the charge went up in previous years under the previous administration. So I, for one, won't be supporting the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to speak to this, but I take offence when they're told that only rich people or want brown. I thought the idea of being environmentally friendly was that we encouraged people to have brown bins, because the amount of waste, if you don't have a brown bin, which is your choice, I have 2. But when we didn't have brown bins, the amount of fly tipping comes back to the council to pay for, and also the amount, I live in Barrow on Soar, the amount of garden waste that was put into the rivers and canals, which doesn't help with flooding. I am disappointed Green members do not think it's good to encourage people to have brown bins. I save on taking my car to the tip. I save on the maintenance of my car, and it's tidy and neat, and plus it's the right stuff, not put in black bins or anything else. So I am very disappointed that the Green Party think it is for people that can only, not interested in the environment, but only want to do it because they can afford the money. I'm very disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Infield.
The Green Group won't be supporting this amendment, and I'm sure my colleagues, resent the implications that in doing so we're being anti-environmental. What's being asked for is a 5% increase over 2 years, which is less than inflation. It is in no way going to therefore damage the activity of the brown bins, which are perfectly acceptable and which we support. We're not proposing scrapping brown bins, which would be environmentally damaging. The other part of this is that I do get concerned by the idea that you can just take money out of a council that is so tight at the moment. I don't believe there are significant room for further efficiency savings. The result will be therefore a decline in services. We also know that sometimes short-term expenditure cuts can result in long-term costs for the councils, as over a long period with HMAB, we saw the increase in voids under the Conservative administration, which is now being dealt with, but it costs money. So I do not want to see money just arbitrarily taken out of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Hello there. Coming from the key for me is that this is a matter of principle. There has been a promise made. It was in a published manifesto. The current administration were elected on this promise, and they subsequently made the decision and chose to take control. So it's simple. If you vote for the budget, you're voting to support, and there's no way to cope this, a promise that has now been broken. If one promise can be broken, what's to stop other promises being broken? If I was a resident sitting here, I would think, oh no, a promise from Labour is now worthless. If you can break one, you can break others. So I urge you to vote against. You have said a number of times that you have an enormous buffer of 6 million rather than 3 million, so there clearly is some movement here. What I wanted to pick up on is I have been told that Labour is not prepared to make savings for savings' sake. That very much belittles the issue. This isn't savings for savings' sake. This is protecting a promise that was made to the electorate who have elected you on that promise and trust you to deliver on that. Otherwise, why have any manifesto? I'm surprised that some people have raised the argument that brown bins are optional. This suggests that you would be happy if £5 added to the charge and some people chose not to use that, which is totally anti-environmental and would cause no savings in the first place if fewer people then had brown bins. So I don't take that argument at all. From a resident's perspective, £5 might seem very little. I can assure you, as a percentage of the current rate, it is actually quite high. And I have talked to residents before who are strapped for money, and £5 can feel a great deal. So I don't appreciate the belittling of how much that can be worth to some people. For as far as I'm concerned, the only people trying to have their cake and eat it are the administration who made a promise, were elected on the promise, and are now going to vote for a budget which breaks that promise. It's black and white. You had a promise, you're breaking it. Finally, I just wanted to turn and again, thinking from residents, as far as I'm concerned, the Green Party are champions of the environment. Antithetical that one of the things that the Greens are doing is raising the green bin waste collection. The identity of the party, as far as I understand it, is that you are champions of the environment. So what I ask, Greens, are you still the party of the environment, or have you lost your identity, and are you now Labour lackeys following any proposal that they put forward?
Okay, moving on, please. Councillor Popley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My point is more on point 2, regarding the actual reserves in the general fund. I'm speaking as a member of the former Budget Scrutiny Panel when we reviewed this, and Councillor Ashcroft very kindly came to our meetings and took a plethora of my questions at the time, which I won't rehash. But my feeling has always been, and I've said this year on year, so this is nothing new, if you put a plaster on, after time, it's going to come off. And I feel that if we keep chucking money from the reserves and the general fund, we're going to keep having these problems. It's not cruel, as we've heard tonight. I didn't become a Conservative because I felt, nasty or anything. I became a Conservative against much local arbitration. My family, as most of you know in here, were Liberals. I go against the whole grain in my family. I go against the norm. I became a Conservative because I believed in capitalism and thinking pragmatically. So to hear that accusation tonight goes against everything I'm saying now. I'm thinking long term. This conversation keeps happening year on year on year, and we keep having the same discussions. Whereas I'm more, holistically, like my colleagues are saying, and think long term. That's why I support point 2 especially, because I think long term we're going to have this conversation anyway. Why not actually be grown up about it and do it now rather than kick the can down the road year on year on year? Because in the end, we're going to have to deal with it anyway. So let's think ahead and plan ahead and actually look at these cost efficiency savings now rather than have to do it 5 years hence when there is a problem, a bigger problem. Why not be savvy and plan pragmatically now? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Flashing lights going hectic here. On my list next is Councillor Campbell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I represent some of the poorest people in Thorpe-Acre and Dishley, Warwick Way flats, who have a brown bin. And to make out that it's just rich people that afford brown bins is a disgusting thing to say. Some of my residents are struggling already to pay the way. And so this extra increase is just another nail in the coffin for them. So I'll be voting for the amendment.
Okay, so I don't have anybody else in the queue, so, okay, we're going again now. It's all right, Councillor Charles, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that nobody on the opposite benches has commented on their broken manifesto promise yet. It's never a good look to make a pledge that you then renege on and fail to keep. The National Labour government will be blaming this sort of broken promise on the state of the economy. But here in Charnwood, as Councillor Rosscroft has just said, we have higher than expected working balances, with a headroom in excess of £3 million. There is not a financial reason to put further pressure on our residents, and I do not accept that this is a necessary increase, so I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maynard, please.
Is the right thing to do. I would like to ask why you haven't followed correct procedure and you're leaving it till tonight to raise it when the whole of the budget has gone through a thorough scrutiny process. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll, now there's nobody else in, Councillor Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's right that some accusations have been thrown. But let me just reassure people that actually the budget is bigger than these 2 points here. It's a massive budget. It's about £80 million in total, but the net budget is about £21 million. But yeah, £500,000 or £400,000, £435,000 will make a specific dent in the budget, and we've got the NTFO in the next item, and so it's important. Like, yes, you know, last year was our first budget. We froze brown bins and we balanced the reserves. And it was the Conservatives who stood up and said, no, why aren't you increasing charges? We have more time. We looked at it and we looked at the pressures that the council is under and the services that they have to deliver. And the reason the council is under such immense pressure is the absolute shambles the Conservatives left the finances in. I remember budgets that they brought forward that were using £1 million worth of reserves, not 268,000, millions of pounds worth of reserves. And you just have to hark back to some of those previous budgets to have a look. But it was the Conservatives who increased brown bin charges from £17 to £50 when they were in charge. And now they're saying that all increase is something that shouldn't be done. But when they were in power, they did it. And they did it year after year after year after year. In our first year, we froze it. So, Madam Mayor, I won't be supporting this amendment. I can understand why they did it. They had lots of time to bring these forward where we could have debated it. But that full council isn't the time to make near £500,000 movement in a budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be not supporting the amendment.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Wesley next, please.
Thank you. The point was, it's a manifesto pledge. Now, I wasn't a councillor for the past 10 years, so I can't speak about previous Conservative manifestos, but you made a specific pledge to the residents. We didn't, and you've raised it within the second year. It's not good enough.
To speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we missed the point tonight, and I think from this side we've made it quite clear it's about the manifesto. When I was first involved in delivering a manifesto, good advice was never to commit items that an administration you cannot deliver after being elected. In my view, this administration has broken this golden rule when I refer to the Charnwood Labour Manifesto 2023-27. Our promise to you, freeze brown bin garden waste collection charges. This amount of £5 may not seem so much, but it comes at a time when every penny counts in this time of cost of living crisis, especially the elderly who have seen their winter fuel allowance removed by this government, and young families struggling with higher food bills. This broken promise, and it is a broken promise, don't get away from it, seems to suggest that Labour administration is out of touch with current situation. The Labour minority administration has been survived with the support of the Greens. It will be interesting to see tonight whether they support a broken promise by this Labour administration by not keeping to a clear commitment in their manifesto. Seems if they are going to support again. This cost increase may affect the amount of brown bins within the borough. Therefore, we may see a reduction in the amount of green waste for recycling, something I'm sure the Greens would not agree with. I turn to the use of reserves. Again, I see no reference to the promise in the Labour manifesto. Identify and implement a cost reduction strategy on department budgets so that services are provided as cost effective as possible. If this strategy had come forward as promised, there would be no need to use reserves and raise brown bin charges. Another promise that was in the manifesto that hasn't come to fruition. I also note another promise in the Labour manifesto. Costs are increasing everywhere, so we will cap any rise in council tax to 3%, actually proposed 3.28. With this acknowledgement, I hope the administration will support this amendment and change their mind to what I've heard tonight, which is in line with their own manifesto. Hopefully the Greens will do the right thing and support this Conservative amendment too. I always remember that you have actually broken a promise and you have actually Green supported
sorry,
it.
your time, 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
I was just going to say, Madam Mayor, I second the amendment.
I'll say the 3 minutes was up when I came in. Okay, so Councillor Ashcroft, you have 5 minutes to sum up, please. This is to the amendment.
This is just summing up to the amendment.
Yeah.
Once it's voted on, we'll move on.
So I don't think these amendments are required and I don't support them. We talked about the holistic finances, and if you look holistically, our position is increased from having 5.5 million at the end of 24-25 in the working balance to 6.4 million. So whether we use the 268 or not has no effect on our sustainability. So, this is a necessary saving just because saving for saving's sake, you want to say 0 rather than 268, but there's no justification. There's a lot of talk about savings, but if you look at our papers, you can see there's very significant savings. It's both ongoing and one-offs that we've already implemented. So there's already a very vigorous method of both looking at our income, and also what we want to do is have fair income by inflation-based increasing in costs rather than having just ad hoc increases. So again, we're moving to a fairness in terms of both our costs and also maintaining services by not making savings when they're not required, which would mean looking at what we're actually saving. It would hit our services. So for all these reasons, I don't think any of these amendments are required.
Thank you, Councillor Ashcroft. So I'm going to ask now the room to vote using your consoles. And can I remind everybody that this is a named vote? Thank you. There's 44. Apparently one person hasn't voted.
Okay. Councillor Hodgson, can somebody take a look at his console? And in the meantime, Councillor, would you care to vote using your hand, please, Councillor Hodgson, if you have to vote for the amendment?
Okay, if you can raise your hand, please.
Can I be clear? You're voting for supporting the amendment. Thank you. Somebody will try and help with the console. Okay, we'll just take a moment to check the vote.
read that out.
Okay. Okay, so while they're just mending the consoles, I can announce that for the amendment there was 20, against was 25, and there were no abstentions, so the amendment has been lost. Everybody clear? Okay, so
we now
now...
move back to the substantive motion.
So now we move back to the substantive motion.
If anyone wants to speak.
And kicking off with anybody who'd like to speak on that.
There's nobody, you can ask the Mayor who reserves it.
Nobody? Okay, so Councillor Mayor reserved his right and has, I believe, 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're just going to exercise 5 minutes just in case. But I support this budget and urge everyone to support it. It is a budget that delivers the financial resources that we need to continue delivering great efficient services, invest in our staff and provide them with the resources to do their jobs. We have over £20.7 million worth of net spend, so it's not a budget that is shrinking services, but investing in them and growing the capacity of the council. We have already invested in our council services, housing stock, voluntary and community groups, community centres and local businesses. This budget continues building on the work what we are doing this year to get our services to where we want them to be. Again, we are providing money to our voluntary and community groups, set aside another £75,000 this year to make this happen. Members will see this as a service pressure, as simply the Conservatives plan to scrap them. That's voluntary grants, as there was no budget for this in any of the MTFO or financial plans that they had left. Okay, if ever you needed an indication as to the difference between the two parties, this is it, not the amendment. This is it. You know, we're putting in money and helping the most vulnerable there. Council tax is only going up by £5 per year, adding only pennies per week to the council tax bill of local residents. I know the Conservatives politic about the 3.28% and the 3%, but frankly, it's only pennies for our residents, and they can see beyond that one. Okay, council rents going up only 2.7% per year, which is less than inflation and demonstrates how we are looking after our tenants. I remember a council meeting where we proposed lower rents, but they put them up 8%, 9%, maybe 10%. Look at the difference that we're making. However, spend on council properties and making sure that they have a decent home to live in, our tenants, is £18.4 million, substantial investment in their homes. After all this forecasted investment, we will still have adequate reserves in the housing revenue account of 1.6 million. General reserves are forecast to be 6.4 million. Councillor Ashcroft has pointed that out at the end of this year, 25-26, showing a very healthy level and above the £3 million that we increased reserves to, the minimum reserves to, that the section 151 officer should say as a minimum. Contrast this with the Conservatives MTFS of 2023. Those with laptops will be able to bring it up, I'm sure, really quickly. Before that election, which showed a balance of reserves forecast to be just £310,000 at the end. Has done to turn things around and prevent this council from having to issue a section 114 notice. Total general fund reserves are £17.1 million, a very adequate and a very comfortable level, you'll agree. It gives stability and certainty and also means that we can react to any unforeseen events. This budget ensures the council is funded adequately to deliver its services. We are investing record levels of investment into our housing stock, providing money for our community and voluntary groups, using a very minimal amount of reserves to deliver this balanced budget. I recommend everyone to support it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I noticed, Councillor Infield, you've put your button on. You didn't indicate earlier, so we're in the process of summing up, so we can now move on straight to Councillor, if that's so. Ashcroft now, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. To summarise, we've proposed budgets for 2025-26 that enable the council to continue to deliver a high level of service whilst also maintaining a healthy financial position. Although there is a small use of the general fund working balance, the working balance at the end of 25-26 will have increased from 5.5 million at the end of 24-25 to 6.4 million. And the overall general fund revenue account reserves will have increased from 13 million at the end of 24-25 to over 17 million at the end of 25-26. Hence, the proposed modest use of the general fund working balance does not affect the sustainability and is consistent with our strategy of moving towards a sustainable finances. I would also point out that we are being fair to our residents by moving to inflation-based increases in costs whilst maintaining low council costs, and also using our financial position to maintain or improve services in a continuing environment of severe service pressures. I therefore commend these budgets to all members for approval.
Thank you. So I'm now putting the motion to the vote. Please use your consoles to vote, and a reminder again that this is a recorded named vote.
There's 3 people who haven't voted so far as we... If there's any trouble with any consoles, please let us know. Hopefully not.
One's gone on 18 now.
It's 2 now. It's gone up by 1. 2 more haven't voted.
I think they need to have a look on the system. Can you see who?
Just bear with us, or if you notice anything, please let us know. I don't know what's on the screen behind.
It's 200.
Sure that
Twenty. 25. Okay, we got there. A round of applause.
Okay, thank you for bearing with us on that. We're all still getting used to the technology, so that was helpful. Thank you. So we'll just compile that result and...
Yeah, we'll compile the results and announce it. Okay, I can now announce the results. So 25 for, 0 against and 20 abstentions. So it is carried. The motion is carried. Okay, so let's move on to now item 6.2, medium-term financial outlook 25 to 28 and capital strategy, treasury management strategy statement, minimum revenue provision policy and annual investment strategy 2025 to 26, page 45. I call on Councillor Ashcroft to propose the item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to introduce the MTFO for 2025 to 28.
Sorry, Councillor Ashcroft, I can hear, no, can you sort of Stop speak. Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't hear with people. Okay, thank you.
I said, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to introduce the MTFO for 2025-28. It can be seen from the introduction to this MTFO that while it continues our strategy of moving towards financial sustainability, it also makes provision for the likelihood of significant local government reorganisation within the timescale of the MTFO. A feature of this MTFO is that the minimum working balance of the general fund revenue account remains above the minimum amount specified by the Section 151 officer through to the end of 2028, which is the maximum life of this council. So, Madam Mayor, for the reasons set out in the report, I move recommendations 1 to 4, also set out in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second this and reserve my right. Thank you.
Okay, so if any councillors would like to speak, please indicate using your console. Councillor Infield.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you.
So the Green Group will be supporting the MTFO. We think it's sound and balanced. And I just want to note that it's just as well we have the considerable reserves, because the long-term changes will seem to require us to draw on those considerably. The transition to a unitary council structure is not going to be cheap. And we also note that the further development of the sill is not coming free either. That seems to have a cost attached of 250k. So we note these things, but they're important and they're to be expected. So it seems like a sound plan that we'll be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. So if there's no other speakers, I call on Councillor Ashcroft to sum up, please. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Councillor Mayor reserved his right.
Okay, sorry. Apologies, Councillor.
No, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Here we have another robust MTFO, looking forward and identifying all the potential risks, and we're going to use it to inform the decisions we make to minimise those risks from coming to fruition. It's an MTFO that even at the end of 3-year period leaves us with an adequate levels of reserves, and knowing what's coming down with LGI, it's good to have those levels of reserves. As I mentioned previously, a 2023 version of this document had us running out of money midway through 2026-2027. However, thanks to the hard work we've done over the past 20 months, we have managed to turn it around. Well, we came with a mandate that we would look after the finances, and we are delivering on that. We've made some tough decisions already, and has everything gone to plan? Probably not. However, having a more settled macro outlook and government that is prepared to fund local government with more money, it does give me confidence in the MTFO. It's great to receive £1.6 million in EPR funding, which will go a long way to cover the cost of food waste implementation costs that's coming next year. The amount of the government is going to give us for that is still to be confirmed, and of course, so our outlook might be even rosier. There are new risks, however, some we haven't faced before, and the document touches on the local government reorganisation, LGR. We will keep a watchful eye over the next 2 years to make sure that it impacts as little as possible on the day-to-day. We're also making sure that we make the savings we said we are going to do, and some £330,000 of options for change savings, and looking up to about £1 million for the remainder of the plan. However, we will take each decision to ensure that it doesn't impact negatively on service delivery or service levels. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So I can now call on Councillor Ashcroft to sum up, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To summarise, this administration inherited a large and increasing structural deficit in the General Fund revenue account. And this MTFO continues to implement our strategy of moving towards financial sustainability, whilst also taking into account the likelihood of local government reorganisation and associated costs. Significantly, by demonstrating a working balance in the General Fund working balance in 2028, that is above the required minimum, it demonstrates the financial viability of this council over its life without taking further action. Okay, this is in contrast with the previous administration's last MTFS. So therefore, I commend this MTFO, capital plan strategy, minimum revenue provision policy and annual investment strategy to all members for approval.
Thank you. So I'm now putting the motion to the vote. Please use your consoles to vote. 2 more to go. 1 more. We've got, oops, that's it. I was just about to say 1 MIA, but we're there. So 45, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so I make it 45 4, so it's unanimous. So moving on. Item 6.3, Capital Plan Amendment Reports. I call on Councillor Ashcroft to propose the item.
Madam Mayor, to enable the acquisition of affordable housing to meet the housing need budget to be available in 2024-25 and 2025-26, I move the recommendations set out in the report.
Councillor Tillotson.
I second this, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. So if any councillors would like to speak, please indicate using your console. No? Okay. So I now call on Councillor Ashcroft to sum up, please. Oh, sorry, Councillor Tillotson, you reserved your right. Would you like to speak?
I did. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ashcroft?
Yeah, I have no further comments either.
No further comments. So I'm now putting the motion to the vote. Again, use your consoles to vote. Okay, bashing. We got there quick this time. We're getting the hang of it. So 45 4 0 0. So the motion is carried. So moving on to item 7, calling references. There are no calling references from scrutiny. Item 8, position statements. No requests for position statements have been received. Item 9, motions on notice. No motions on notice were received. Item 10, questions on notice. As a reminder, the questions that councillors have submitted and the answers to them are in the supplement pack. I will call on those councillors who have indicated that they wish to ask a supplementary question. Supplementary questions must relate directly and exclusively to the questions submitted, and any other supplementary questions will not be permitted. Each councillor will have 1 minute to ask their supplementary question, and the councillor responding will also be able to speak for 1 minute. So item 10.1, winter fuel allowance, motion on notice. Councillor Baines, would you like to ask your supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thanks for the response. But given the response, does the leader think that, given the number of pensioners affected by the winter fuel increase by the National Labour government was 30,000 in this borough was 30,177, that 428 people, pensioners advised by the Citizens Advice Bureau, is actually a good outcome.
Mayor, do you wish?
Cheers, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Council had a great debate here when this motion was debated. I feel that we've given everything, all the actions are covered off. I understand Councillor Baines' point there, but it's the Citizens Advice just one resource that people can turn to. They've obviously got family and friends and other agencies as well, and other councils and in the area as well that they could have turned to. So yeah, I'm confident with the numbers of the pension credit that has been claimed, that people that want that support and need that support are claiming it. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10.2, staffing in the housing department. Councillor Monk has sent apologies and therefore will not be asking the supplementary question. Item 10.3, creating a prosperous economy. Councillor Charles, would you like to ask your supplementary question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes. Thank you for the reply I've received. I've read the economic development strategy and it is full of big ideas, but there is very little of it that applies to the small retail businesses that will be massively affected by the increased costs that are coming. I'm looking at the hairdressers, the coffee shops, the small retail clothes shops that make our towns vibrant places that people want to visit. I understand from the reply that the corporate delivery plan is going to Cabinet on the 12th of March. Can I ask the lead members to advise if there is any support or protection in it for our small retail businesses, particularly those that are currently renting premises from the council? It is these businesses that keep our town centres like Loughborough alive.
Thank you. Councillor Tillotson, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the council is very supportive of local business, and to this end we've organised a business networking event on the 5th of March, which I think members have been made aware of. So I would encourage businesses that you're aware of to sign up for that, and I'm sure they would find it very useful.
Thank you. Item 10.4, severe flooding in our borough. Councillor Boker, would you like to ask your supplementary question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but my voice is pretty bad this evening, so I'm not speaking too
Maybe
loud.
just speak a bit nearer to the mic.
All right, okay. Thank you for the answer, but I would like to understand from the lead member for this over the other side. I have it on good authority as to why sandbags and drains were not sent to Wymeswold during the last flooding issue, and also the drains, I have it on good authority, were not cleared out adequately, and this doesn't include sites that already have suds. So can someone please assure me at some point, they don't have to do it now, but there is a need for vigilance on these procedures, and if there isn't, we did have one house that actually flooded again in Wymeswold. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I mean, there's obviously lessons to be learned. My understanding is that sandbags were sent out when councillors requested them to the areas, but the important thing here is there's a number of agencies involved here, and I know that there has been meetings between county, between Charnwood, between Environmental Agency, between Severn Trent, between the Canal River Trust, to try and coordinate and get more information and knowledge and get these learning points embedded so that processes will be changed moving forward. So hopefully we'll take lessons learned from what's happened, and we'll have more robust responses in the future.
Thank you. Item 10.5, Environment Agency Flood Risk Data. Councillor Bellamy, would you like to ask your supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the response to my first question. But I note that the insurance industry will use the new flood risk maps as well as actual flooding events to set future premiums in relation to climate risk. For those council properties like Staveley Court that are or will move to higher risk categories, will resilience measures such as raising the height of electric points and air brick covers be included in maintenance and void related contracts so that these insurance premium increase may be reduced and the value for money and safety and quality housing standards be met to the benefit of both tenants and the council?
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think you make some excellent points there. So what we'll do is we'll take those points away and check that we are actually taking board those comments. So those were very useful. Thank you.
Thank you. So item 10.6, reducing littering. Councillor Snart, would you like to ask your supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand from reports I received littering is on the increase. Therefore, since the administration has been in control of this council, why have penalty notices reduced by half, only 4 issued outside Loughborough in year 2024, when the Labour manifesto states our promise, keep streets litter free and regular swept? Is this another failed manifesto promise? At a recent parish council meeting, I was embarrassed to learn of the poor state of the curbsides photographs were supplied. Would the leader explain the plans the administration has to reverse this reduction in issuing penalty notices and the actions to improve cleanliness of the borough streets in line with the manifesto promise? It is interesting to note that during the litter cam trial, the positive detections were in line with exceeding the year totals for the whole borough.
Councillor Snart, that's 1 minute gone. Thank you very much. I think you've asked your question there. Thank you. Councillor Blackshaw, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The litter cam was commissioned by yourselves previous to our administration taking over. A number of factors contributed to the decision not to continue with it. In fact, the AI software selected didn't prove particularly effective at spotting littering. The deterrent wasn't sufficient to stop everyone littering in that location. And therefore we weren't able to realise the savings that came from reduced litter picking in the location or gain enough in fines to cover the software and the on-cost. If we decide to look at it again, then we'll need to look for a proven system with a higher level of success rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10.7, housing needs. Councillor Seaton is not present at the meeting and so there's no supplementary question. Item 10.8, English devolution. Councillor Snart, would you like to ask your supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would the leader publish the criteria that the government set out to be in the priority programme and the reason for not being on the programme? Is there a reason for not involving members in the council when developing in an interim plan? It seems that the preferred model has been agreed and not included members of this council. The leader states there will be credible alternatives. One has come forward, which in my view doesn't cut the mustard for some of my residents of my ward. Can he explain what the other alternatives are? And would the leader give an indication of timescales before the interim plans are submitted, including residents' involvement, scrutiny arrangements and full council? Would the leader commit tonight that he will oppose any part of Charnwood Borough being transferred into Leicester City administrative area?
Councillor Mayor, do you wish to respond, please?
Thank you very much. I'd refer Councillor Snart to the opening statement I made in my leader's statement today. Regarding the priority, actually it's the wrong council you're asking. It should be Leicestershire County Council that you referred that question to, because they're the ones that decided to apply for the priority programmes. So that would be where that question should be directed to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 11, minute references. There are no minute references. Item 12, urgent executive decisions exempted from calling. There are no urgent executive decisions exempted from calling. Item 13, delegation of executive functions, page 176. This is a report to inform the Council of delegations of executive functions to the Director of Customer Experience, the Head of ICT and Data Security, the Head of Revenues, Benefits and Customer Experience and the Head of Regulatory and Community Safety. If any councillors would like to ask a question, please indicate using your console. Okay, so anybody else? I can move on. Excellent. Right, so I'm now moving on to item 14, appointments to committees. There are no changes to appointments to committees that I'm aware of. So we move now to close of business. So thank you all for attending tonight. Just to remind people, the next scheduled meeting of the council is the 14th of April, and I look forward to seeing many of you who've signed up already for the dinner. So thank you very much for the support. Thank you.